let's talk about what happens when you try to sever the ties in homoerotic friendships. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I've been working with victims and perpetrators of abuse for many years, and I'm going to talk about my experience in counseling people and working with people and sort of severing ties with homoerotic friendships. So first of all, thank you guys so much for supporting that post, but I want to talk about with homoerotica in friendships, both male and female, there's oftentimes a thin line between love and hate. And so I think, especially with women can become very reactive, so when they feel like this sense of rejection. And so I'll start off by talking there, or maybe I'll just speak in general terms because we only have 10 minutes as opposed to a podcast episode where I can go a little bit longer. So again, going back to what I was saying, there's usually a thin line between love and hate. So there's this idealization where they put you up on a pedestal. They love you, they like you, they want to be in your skin, versus this devaluation phase. I hate you. How dare you not be as into me as I'm into you? How dare you, want to have connections with other people? I want to tap into this and explore this a little bit further. Why aren't you reciprocating my advances? Why aren't you picking up what I'm putting down? And so a lot of times things are already in a rocky space anyway, because that person can flip on a dime. They become possessive. They become jealous. They want you to be their person. They're struggling in a lot of cases with their own sexuality, and so there's a lot that kind of goes into their own chaos. And sometimes and paranoia, because sometimes you don't even pick it up until it's too late. You might feel like, oh, I just have a friend that's like super into me or wants to be super friendly. And, it kind of makes me uncomfortable, but he or she's harmless. And so it can start out like that. And so when most of the time when people such as yourself that are the victim of this homoerotic friend, I'll put it that way, when you decide to break it off, this person is usually already crossed the line of disrespect, intrusiveness, mouthiness, possessiveness. They've already crossed that line. And so when you try to, have a conversation with them, you try to have a rational conversation, it's not going to work in most cases, if not all cases, because typically in order to have a rational conversation with a person, it's got to be a rational conversation between two people. And so if you're the rational one and that person is homoerotic and they're sort of, dealing with all of these feelings, but yet in denial at the same time, they are not rational. They're not objective. So based off of that alone, you're probably going to have a world of trouble. So they're not going to be able to sit down and have that conversation. If they do sit down and have that conversation with you and it appears to be rational, a lot of times what happens is they're shaking their head, they're nodding in agreement, they're agreeing with all the stuff that you're putting out there, but they're also lying through their teeth, right? Because they have their own hidden agenda, and their hidden agenda is, hey, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. But at the end of the day, I am delusional and I think that you're going to still want to be with me. So I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, but I know that I'm going to get what I want in the end, which is us hooking up and being together as a couple. And meanwhile, I'm still going to act a fool or be inappropriate, in the meantime. So I'm not going to really respect boundaries. I'm not respecting you. I'm not respecting what you're saying, but I'm going to tell you that. So I'm going to put a little band-aid on it for a few minutes here before this side of me comes back out again. And so often, when people do this, you tend to give your friend multiple chances or communicate with them multiple times. But in the meantime, they're lying to you. you know, and with no real intention of stopping what they're doing because they want what they want and they've lost objectivity a long time ago. And so my recommendation, you know, based off of that and based off of, you know, people that don't, you know, that don't respect the word no, that can no longer be objective. And in a lot of cases, sometimes can't even be safe to be around because people like this can also, they could cause a scene. They have no problem causing a scene, yelling, name calling, you know, maybe even sabotaging or attempting to sabotage other relationships that you've got going on, or just being inappropriate and disrespectful, and possibly even lashing out physically. My advice would be to have that conversation if you feel called to do so, to have that conversation one time and then be done with it. The next time that they cross that line, I don't really feel this is my motto, and it, you know, everybody's grown. I can't tell you what to do, but my thing is, I don't really think you need to tell adults what to do. You know, if they don't have a cognitive impairment where their memory is gone, such as like Alzheimer's or something like that, you don't really need to repeat yourself for you know, things like that. People heard you the first time. And so I say, you know, if you feel called to have that conversation, have that conversation. Be very direct, be very clear. um, don't allow them to cross that threshold. The minute that they do cross that boundary, get out of there, cut off all contact and be done with it, because this is a person that will continue to escalate and does not respect the word no. And a lot of times, if you know what tends to happen when you try to hang on, you give that person multiple chances, they're going to drag you through hell and back. And most of the time what ends up happening is one friend has to walk on eggshells to kind of keep things an even keel, or you find yourself protecting that other person's feelings more than you do your own. You kind of have to hide parts of yourself. You can't communicate when you feel uncomfortable. And so, you know, it just becomes this icky dynamic, that you're not able to safely navigate, or you are put in a position, and they want you to be in this position. So this is intentional. They want you to be in a position where you're considering their feelings over your own. And, you know, my response is don't ever do that. Cut it off at the first sign of disrespect. Be firm, be assertive, be direct, be clear, and be done, and, you know, move on. Hope that helps. Like, follow, and share if this is helpful.